Hi, my name is David Sammel, tennis coach and author of Locker Room Power. Welcome to the Locker Room Power podcast, episode 2. Today's podcast will feature Liam Brody talking about his upcoming experience with the Davis Cup team, his first as a practice partner before the match against the United States. But firstly, I want to give you some background into my life and how I came about the idea to write the book, Locker Room Power. I was born in Johannesburg, South Africa, and actually cannot remember not being able to hit a tennis ball. My mother introduced us to tennis. She was a latecomer to the sport, only picking it up at the age of 28, but a very talented sports lady who had represented South Africa at netball and played the equivalent of English county tennis or state tennis in the States for her county, and in tennis actually reached the top 10 in South Africa by the age of 37. Anyway, my older sisters played tennis, and we had a court in the backyard, and all I remember is hitting against the wall and being at the back of the court while my mother practiced with my sisters, and then I would get my tidbits of little hits here and there, and later on just played tennis. And my first tournament was probably at the age of 8 or 9, an under 10 tournament. I remember losing to a German South African Carsten Pop 6-love, but then a year later was able to beat him. During this time, I met a very good friend of mine, Mark Samuels, who unfortunately and tragically has had a major stroke and is unable to speak, write, or do many signs. But his spirit is unbelievable, and he still understands, everything that is said to him, who I visited very recently. And we reminisce over the young days of us playing in junior tournaments and how we got back together in college in the United States. When I was 17 years of age, I was very much into motorcycles and had ridden motorcycles from the age of about 13. And I borrowed my cousin's 750 Suzuki motorcycle and confidently rode into our high school at about 2 minutes past 8 after the headmaster had gathered everybody outside for assembly, and basically drowned out the whole assembly while I revved and roared with the bike into the bike shed and came sauntering out like the bee's knees. The headmaster screamed, "Come here, you maniac animal!" And in those days, caning was very, very acceptable, and proceeded to give me 3 cuts in front of the school, and then send me back, tail between my legs, into the assembly. I told this story to my friend Mark, and he said, "Yes, you are a bit of an animal, like a manimal. In fact, you are the mammal." And that's where the nickname came from and has basically stuck my whole life. After high school, I was recruited to the University of Texas by Kevin Curran, his last year being my first year at Texas. But it was not a happy time for me. I came in the middle of the year, January, which I don't really recommend to players if they're going to college in the States. It's quite hard to adjust when everybody's made friends and really gotten into the whole college scene for a good three and a half months before you, and the team was fairly settled. So I was coming in there and unsettling the status quo. And added to that, I had an umbilical hernia, which resulted in surgery. So my first season was not outstanding. During this period, Mark and another South African friend of mine, Gary Kutsia, were both recruited by A.G. Longoria, a coach who had taken Pan American from nowhere all the way to top 10 in the country. And he had been recruited by North Texas, who were trying to get into the Southwest Conference at the time, and the football team had just drawn with Texas. And they were very keen for me to join them the following September at North Texas. AG flew me up to see the school and talk to me about things. And a big bonus was he was prepared to offer me a 4-year scholarship, therefore securing my education and the amount of money that my parents would have to shell out, which was very important to me. I therefore accepted and transferred to North Texas to have what I would say 3 really good years, and but unfortunately the athletic department lost loads of money. The director of sport and head of the football team, Hayden Fry, was dismissed, and because of the shortfall, AG also lost his job. So my final 2 years, the tennis team was run on a shoestring, and certainly wasn't making the gains that we had done the first 2 years. But nevertheless, it was enjoyable. Anyway, before I get into my playing career, which started in Europe, here's a small excerpt from some questions I asked Liam about Davis Cup. So I'm here with Liam Brody, who's just been asked to go and practice with the British Davis Cup team before they play against the United States in Glasgow. So he leaves on Sunday, and this will be is this your first time practicing with the Davis Cup team for a whole week?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Okay. So what are your thoughts going into this week, because it's a new experience?
Yeah, well, I was actually supposed to play a tournament this week in France, but obviously I got asked, and I jumped at the opportunity, obviously, to be there with the best players in Great Britain, and to be able to see how they operate, and obviously to be playing against the States as well. It's an opportunity I couldn't pass up.
That's very true, and I think it'll be nice for you to actually play against basically one of the great players of this decade in Andy Murray in practice, to feel where your level is. And how do you feel about that? Are you excited about that?
Yeah. I think it'll be great to be able to hopefully pick Andy's brain on a couple of things. He's a great player and one of the greatest generations of tennis players. So his knowledge of tennis is obviously almost unparalleled, and again, just to see the way he is around the court, on the court, and just his general mannerisms will be invaluable to learn from.
Great. And would you class this as part of the fun of playing tennis?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I suppose it's one of the more glamorous weeks, being able to go to Glasgow for the Davis Cup and play with the guys, and obviously watch us hopefully beat the US. But I mean, to be honest with the tennis, I just enjoy improving day in, day out as a tennis player and as a person, and challenging myself at the sport I love.
Great. And these past 2 days you've been here in Nottingham practicing with both myself and Mark Hilton, and then Leighton Alfred with the guys here. Is it good to come and spend some time with friends that you haven't seen for a few months, because you've obviously made great gains in your ranking, and not seen them for a little while in tournaments?
Yeah, it's fantastic to touch base with these guys and obviously see them all doing well and playing well, and to be able to play with them again and do some of the drills that obviously started me on my run in the first place. I think there's a fantastic atmosphere here, and it's great to be able to feed off, especially obviously before I go to another team atmosphere at Davis Cup.
Brilliant. So Liam, you've now played your first two tour events out in the States, which is new for you. Your first two on hard courts and outside of the country. How did you find that experience?
It was definitely a tough experience, but one that obviously I needed to take at some point. At the end of last year, obviously, I was just starting to get used to the challenges, and this year I'll also be trying to get used to them even more and starting to master them, whilst obviously starting to get used to the tour events as well. So it was definitely an eye-opening experience. I've only ever I got a wild card for Queens once and played that one, but never from qualies. And again, as I said about Andy, it's just great to be able to see some of the best players in the world and the similarities as to what they all do and the professionalism that they show day in, day out, and to be able to learn from them and obviously, hopefully one day actually be better than them at what they do.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have to say it's been a real pleasure working with Liam, and he's a very talented boy, and hopefully together with the team we can make some excellent progress in the rest of 2015, and obviously with the French Open and Wimbledon and US Open still to come, there are many opportunities for him to shine. Anyway, on to what I did with my career after college. I have to say, during college, every summer I would go to Europe and play professional tennis, satellites. And in those days, it was very difficult playing professional tennis because the bulk of the tournaments were either satellites or tour level tournaments with very few challengers. I played many money tournaments to supplement my income because in satellites, it was absolutely impossible to make enough money to survive. In order to supplement my income, I signed a contract to play for the Dutch club, the Metselaars in Scheveningen, and I have to say these were some of the happiest times on a tennis court that I encountered. I really enjoyed the team situation, and I was then asked after my first year of playing for them to become the player coach for the first three teams and the first two teams of the juniors, which I accepted. The job evolved into a full-time summer job from April to September, where I was allowed to play tournaments, played for the club, but did a significant amount of coaching as well, and ran the shop with a friend of mine, Peter van Wyk, who was an excellent stringer and a very good salesman. The club flourished at this period where we actually won the National League, and I was very happy there. But every winter, because there were no indoor courts, I returned to Britain and began doing work for the head of the region at the time for the LTA, Roger Cowell, in their Centre of Excellence. He met me through my playing for the Manchester Mortgage Corporation League, which was the equivalent to the World Team Tennis in the United States. Unfortunately, the sponsor was only around for 2 years, so it only existed for 2 years. But another format that was a lot of fun and was a very nice supplement to my earnings. I then had to make a choice as the job on both sides of the channel basically had gotten too big, and I decided to settle in the UK and work with the number of young players who were flourishing in the Manchester area. I also was asked to do several travel trips with the best young players in Britain for the LTA. And shortly after that, I started my full-time squad, which over the years built into one of the most powerful in the UK, with players such as Nick Baglan, Michael Ingham, and Gary Henderson. And then later on, Nick Gould, Jamie Delgado, Andrew Richardson, Tom Spinks were all part of the setup in Manchester. And all these players did extremely well. Andrew Richardson making the third round of Wimbledon and a fantastic Davis Cup debut, career high of about 128. And after these guys came along Miles McLagan, who won the Bronx Challenger with me and Jez Green as the physical trainer. And when he stopped playing, we got involved with Barry Cowan, Arvin Palmer, and Martin Lee, which was a very successful period for Jez and myself, where Marty made top 100, Barry had the famous match against Pete Sampras, and obviously Miles McLagan earlier had taken Boris Becker to 5 sets and had 2 match points, which was a fantastic match, and unfortunately just fell the wrong side of the line, which was very, very disappointing for all of us. And then Arvin Palmer did extremely well, reaching about 118, and Marty going top 100. So good days. And then after those guys, I took a sabbatical from the tour with Jez, and we worked the academies at both Bolton and Leeds before starting the Monte Carlo Tennis Academy in 2006. This was a very successful touring academy and the first of its kind in the world. But unfortunately, the 2008 credit crunch and crash happened, forcing our sponsor to withdraw. So Jez got the offer from Andy Murray, and that was just such a fantastic opportunity for him. And I brought the Monte Carlo Academy back on shore, and over the period of the next 18 months negotiated with Team Bath to become Team Bath MCTA, which this partnership began in 2010 and is doing really well to this day. And I really enjoy my position there as head coach alongside the work that I'm doing with Liam Brody. All through my coaching period from about 1996 onwards, I would talk to players about locker room power and how important it was to carry themselves in the right way, develop weapons that created fear in people, and how everything that you do is interpreted by other players in the locker room. And this has a tremendous effect on how you are perceived and therefore how people play against you. I started making notes and writing pieces that I felt worked particularly well. And over time, it became apparent that if I could order this all in a productive way, there was actually a book in the making. And I'm very proud to have been able to pull it all together with the help of several people and come out with the book Locker Room Power. Thanks for listening. You can find more info on lockerroompower.com, which also includes links to Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and Instagram. The book is available on Amazon, iTunes, Kobo, Nook, Tennis Warehouse, and can be ordered from most bookshops. Goodbye, and we look forward to your company in episode 3. The Mammal.